Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to all of you, my dear students. I hope that you are doing well. A very warm welcome to lecture number 28 of report writing skills. We are gradually coming towards the end of our course and all the components that we have to cover, and taking you towards what we have tried to cover in the previous lecture, lecture number 27. It was all related to improve and build your writing skills, because the focus was on the basic grammar, to which we rarely pay any heed. We do not pay that much of attention to all those basic rules that we ignore, but these are the things which really matter when it comes to our writing. So if I take you towards the flashback, so these were the things that we covered in our previous lecture. We talked about these marks which act as a sign of communicating. They play the same role as the intonation, the stress does in case of the verbal and the vocal communication when it's happening. But whenever, of course, you have to convey the same feeling, the same meaning through your writing, for that purpose we have these punctuation marks, and we looked into each and every one of them, of course, starting from that full stop and going till the end, and looking towards the use of exclamation, the question, the hyphen, the dash, the quotation marks, the brackets, you call them as the parenthesis, the space. We looked into each and every component, semicolon and colon. Even I was learning along with you all, and I believe that I would be able to use them appropriately even within my own writing. Whenever I have to write something, now I know what is the purpose and I'll be using it accordingly. Moving ahead and looking towards the next concept of the run-on sentences, the sentences, of course, which are just running on and they do not have that kind of a pause which is actually required to have a break in thought, and the same reflected within a sentence. So in order to avoid it, we looked into those strategies as well, of course, with the full stop, the comma, the semicolon, and we looked into their uses, the way they can be applied, along with some examples, and lastly coming towards the application of determiners, what they are, what are their types, the general ones, the specific ones, and I believe now we know which determiner has to be placed and what meaning it is going to convey within our own writing. So taking that same basic grammar, I would call it, to the next level, there are some other components which are also going to play a very important role from now and onwards. If you really work into all these components that we are going to study in our today's lecture, so they will be focusing on the verb tense relation. Then moving ahead, once you know what are the different categories of these tenses based on their division within time, moving ahead towards the relation of that verb with the subject which precedes that verb, known as the subject-verb agreement. And once you know, after tense and the subject-verb agreement, how to place words in the appropriate order, known as the word order of a sentence in case of English language. So we'll be moving within levels, of course, starting from verb, level 1, then subject-verb agreement, level 2, and then the word order as the level 3, the advanced level. So let's take a start from our first level, and that is level 1, verb tenses. So as you know what basically a verb is, we have been studying it, so I won't be taking you into that much of a detail. The focus, of course, would be on the tenses and their understanding. But the basic definition, of course, is that the part of speech, of course, that is used to indicate an action happening, the occurrence and state of being. So this is the simple way of defining what basically a verb is. And then looking towards the next category of what a tense is that we have been studying, we know there are the past tense, the future tense, the present tense. So the same is generally the placement of a verb, the same verb that you have just studied within time. When you place that verb within time, So we basically have this concept of time for our own comprehension, for our own understanding. We make sense of our surrounding based on this time that we have in the form of a clock that we follow, the way we simply observe this time moving within our whole universe, I would say, because we are part of that universe, and within which we have this solar system, and within that solar system our globe or the earth is basically revolving around the sun and revolving around its own axis, due to which the sun rises from the east and sets in west. So we can feel this time moving around us. It's all over us. So to understand everything, we simply make sense of it by connecting it with time. In a similar way, we have this part of speech which is connected with time, and through which we are able to convey meaning of what we want to deliver to the other person. So in that way, we have this category of a tense, and then of course we have the three major types categorized according to the time. You have the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. But the important point is that each is also extended further into subcategories, which will be the focus in our today's lecture. And I want you to pay more attention into it, because especially for those of you who at times get mixed up with which tense to use and at what time, so you'll be getting all the tips, all the basics that you can keep in mind, and with a bit of practice you would be able to apply it within your writing and as well as within your speaking. It'll take time once you practice it, but it will become part of your general way of communication. So it won't be that difficult if you just keep on practicing, because after all, practice is basically the key of resolving all the problems. But let's look into these tenses, starting from the first one, which is the present tense. Once again, reminding me of a line, of course, which is not from a movie that is that old, but it's an animated one related to the tenses, yesterday being a history and tomorrow being a mystery, but today is considered as a gift, which is why it's called a present. So you have this present, this is your today, so just try to make it best for yourself and also for the others. So with that, I'm going to take a start looking into this special phase of our day, of our life, and that is of course the present, which is going to become past once it is past. But talking about it, so the simplest category of this tense, of this present, is the simple indefinite tense, and you basically define it as to be the one to describe an action, an event or condition occurring in present, but present is what? It is basically another way of saying it, at the moment. Anything which is happening at the moment. You can say it as the time of the moment is when you are saying it. So this is the time in which it occurs, and when you have to talk about it, so basically you're going to say it within the present tense. So this is the one. The example is going to explain it further. Saudan waits patiently while Talal books the tickets. So this is basically happening at the time in which this sentence is being delivered, whether it's spoken or written, but it's reflecting the same time at which these events are happening, which is why you're saying that these are the conditions which are being described, which are happening at the moment, which is why you are using the present tense. What else are the situations in which you're going to use the present tense? Well, to express general truths, such as some of the scientific facts. Whenever you have to talk about those facts, you're going to use once again the present tense. So it could be any scientific fact. You even Google one, you're going to have them in the same way. Rectangles have 4 sides, so whenever you have to talk about a rectangle, this rule is once again applied, and that is how you're going to say it or write it. Moving ahead, another way of using, or another point of using the present tense, is to indicate an action which is habitual, an event or a condition, of course, which is happening in a habitual way. And what is that way? If you look into the example, Shakar goes to the mall every Thursday evening. So this is something which happens and in a habitual form. And what is basically the habit? The habit of Shakar is to go to the mall on every Thursday. So whenever there will be a Thursday, this person will be visiting the mall, which means it's his habit to visit the mall. And whenever you have to talk about any habitual action, event or condition, again you will be focusing or will be using the present indefinite, or you can call it the simple present tense. So these are the uses when you talk about the simple present tense or the present indefinite tense alongside the examples that you have just seen. Moving ahead, it is also used when writing about the works of art. So you have any literary work, so in which there are different characters which are involved. It can be a play, it can be a novel, but if you are referring to their actions, the way they took it within the play, within the novel, within any story, anecdote that you are talking about, so you're going to use once again the present tense, as the famous play King Lear, from which these lines have been taken. The lines basically are referring to the actions of the characters which are part of the play. So this is basically King Lear rages against the silence of Cordelia, another character, and only belatedly realizes that she, not her more vocal sisters, loves him. So this is the way in which you can see once again the use of the tense present, simple present indefinite, because you are basically referring to some of the literary works of art. So whenever you have to talk about them or the characters or the theme which is there within it, so you're going to once again use the simple present, the present indefinite tense. Moving ahead, used to refer to a future event when used in conjunction with an adverb or an adverbial phrase. One the same thing, adverb is a part of speech, but when it is combined with some words to become a phrase, you call it as the adverbial phrases, as you can see in the red color provided to you in the next three examples which are below. So generally it is basically the present simple indefinite tense is used to refer to your moment of saying it. Something is happening, any event, condition or event which is happening at the moment of speaking will be using the simple present tense. But there is one situation in which it can refer to a future event when it also involves the use of an adverb or an adverbial phrase alongside. So then it will be referring to a future event. For example, the doors open in 10 minutes, which means the doors are about to open within 10 minutes. The doors will be opened within 10 minutes. So another way in which you want to or you use the simple present tense is that you are going to look into the condition whether there is any adverbial phrase which is there alongside the present tense. If it is there, then it will be considered grammatically correct, even if you are using the simple present tense alongside the adverb to refer to a future event. Accepted. You are going to mark it as a tick. I don't know why this happens, but whenever I'm trying to make a tick, it becomes a cross. But in general, moving ahead, classes end next week. Classes will end next week. Classes are going to end next week, but if you say classes end next week, acceptable. The lunar eclipse begins in exactly 43 minutes. So after 43 minutes the eclipse is going to start, but even then the present tense alongside this adverbial phrase will be accepted. Nothing wrong with it, totally acceptable based on the rules of these tenses. And that is how you can look into the multiple uses of this simple present indefinite tense. Now let's move ahead to the next version or variation of that same present tense, and that is known as the present progressive or the present continuous tense. as the word itself indicates, that this is the tense which is used to emphasize something which is continuous, something which is progressing, something which is ongoing. So if you look into the first point, to emphasize the continuing nature of an act, an event or condition. So something which is ongoing, something which continues is basic component that you have to keep in mind while referring to the present progressive or the present continuous tense. Now looking towards the examples, Ahmed is looking for his keys. Looking indicates that still looking, keep on looking. This is the component which shows that the process continues, it's progressing. Uzma is working on an assignment. So once again, dear students, as you can see, ing is indicating the fact that it is something ongoing and ongoing within present. This is the way in which you can clearly see the difference of the previous examples that we have just seen in case of the simple present indefinite tense, and this is the one which is showing that the action is ongoing, continuing, and that ongoing nature is basically reflected with this ing, which is there in this word, which is there in this word. And see its combination, see its link with this is. This is once again indicating that this lies within the present, because you're going to see within the other tenses that you're going to find the difference here, that is will change into was, can change into were or will. This is going to change the overall tense. So keep in mind that link which is there between these words, because that is going to mean a lot when it comes to talk about the other tenses. But this is the way: is looking, was looking. This is basically the point when you are talking about the present progressive continuous tense. Moving ahead, occasionally used to refer to a future event when used in conjunction with an adverb or adverbial phrase. Now this is the point which is almost an extension of the point that we studied last when we talked about the simple indefinite tense. Don't you think it reminds you that sir just talked about the fact that the simple indefinite is used when in conjunction there is an adverb or adverbial phrase? Then why this one? So whether you're going to use that one or this one, the point is both are acceptable, both will be considered grammatically correct. You can either go for that one or this one, but in general this one is used at occasions, occasionally. That one is used frequently. So that is entirely up to you whether to go for this one or that one. Both are acceptable whenever you find this structure. The doors are opening in 10 minutes, so it will be acceptable. Will won't be that much needed. Even if this is the structure, it will be considered acceptable because you have the adverbial phrase that you need to make it correct. So that is the point through which you can simply say that the sentence construction is okay, because it is in accordance with the rules of the present progressive continuous tense. Moving ahead to the next variation, this is the tense known as the present perfect tense. Perfect, why are we saying it perfect? The point is, it is used to describe an action that began in past and continues, situation 1, or has just completed at the moment of utterance. So once again, that link stays there between the moment of the utterance and the action or the event or the condition and its ending. So this is the point, that if it just completes at the moment of the utterance of this statement, which are going to come, if it simply began at some point in past and it ended at the point or just moments before you are about to use that utterance, that will be considered as a tense which is perfect, because you are now describing an event which is complete. It's not something which is still happening or happening at the time of the utterance. It is something which is complete and completed before that moment of utterance when you are about to utter that statement, whether writing it or stating it. So if you look at the examples which are coming ahead after just one point, let's look at this point. Used to suggest that past action still has an effect on something happening in present. This is the key to make you understand what this tense is and how it is used. So this is the key to remember, that your past action that you're going to reflect using this perfect tense, this past action has some effect on something which is happening in the present. So you're going to refer to that thing which is happening within the present as well, but you're going to use that exact perfect tense to describe that event which has completed within past. So it doesn't matter which tense is coming ahead. Of course it can be and it will be within present, just the way the point is coming, but the focus to understand the perfect tense is that you're going to use the perfect tense with that statement to describe that action or event or condition which is complete. The completion is the criteria, and that should be there within your mind. Now let's have a look at the examples. They have not delivered the documents that we need. The thing which is there within the present, and something which has to be done within the past. Something was required, and that was that documents had to be delivered. These were not delivered, and that action of even not delivering lies within past. Therefore you are using to describe that event of the past in present perfect tense. They have not delivered the documents that we need. Making it more comfortable to understand, the health department has decided that all high school students should be immunized against meningitis. So that's some sort of a disease, but focus on the sentence construction, which means that high school students should be immunized, and within future, in the upcoming days, they will be immunized. They probably are being immunized. That is something happening within the present or may happen in future. But what actually was the decision which happened in past, health department has taken a decision. So that means they has decided. It's a department, singular. You will understand how am I using this. So health department has already decided that all high school students should be immunized. So one thing lying in present or future, but this is the focus. So something which is lying within the past, something which is already complete, with that you have this, I would call it as a permission to use the present perfect tense. One more example. Bilawal has dreamed about frogs sitting in the trees every night this week. So this is something which keeps on happening, but once again the structure is describing the fact that it lies within the past. When you are describing it, basically the action is complete. Bilawal has dreamt. So Bilawal has dreamt many times, just the way this thing is happening, but it's done. The dream is complete, which is why you are saying it, that Bilawal has dreamt about frogs sitting in trees every night this week. So the criteria is that this dream has to be complete. That action or event or condition has to be complete when you want to use the present perfect tense, and you will be able to do it easily if it's complete. If we move ahead, present perfect progressive continuous tense. You call it as the present perfect continuous tense or the present perfect progressive tense. The slash indicates you either can call it this way or that way. To describe an action, event or condition that began in past and continues into the present. So this is basically the difference when we talk about the present perfect and the present perfect continuous. Over there the criteria was that it has to be complete, and then you can use that present perfect tense. But if it continues into the present, then which form are you going to use? Then you're going to use the present perfect progressive tense or present perfect continuous tense. Stress is on the ongoing nature of the action. Of course, whether it started in past, but the point has to be there that it should have an ongoing nature. And if that ongoing nature is there within that event or condition, then you're going to use this present perfect progressive tense. They have been publishing this comic book for 10 years. They have been, this addition of primary auxiliary indicates this have been, and then you have the verb in, and once again the ing form. But now whenever you have this perfect progressive or the perfect continuous structure, the verb of course is going to have this ing form, the continuous form, the ongoing form. Alongside you have been, which basically refers to the primary auxiliary verb, and then of course have has to be there to indicate that it's a perfect tense. The present progressive tense. This is the way, this is the structure. If you look into the next example, the dog has been barking. Barking, of course, the ongoing, been indicating that once again it's linked with the use of have or has, and which is indicating that have been or has been indicates that it's a perfect structure. And ing is again referring to the progressive continuous tense. But when it's just the perfect, then no need of been or ing, just have and then the verb. Now we have gone towards yesterday, or meaning the past, and starting of course from the simplest form, the simplest category, and that is the simple indefinite tense. What is basically the simple indefinite tense? In case of the present, you know it was all about at the moment. To describe an action, event or condition that occurred in past, not related with the moment. That is something that you're going to write in past with something which happened in past, not the moment. Before the moment of speaking or writing. So not directly linked with that moment when you are about to speak or write, because if it's directly linked with that moment, it becomes the present. But if it's before that moment of speaking or writing, it becomes the past. For example, I ate an apple, he worked in a factory, they met a friend in the market. So there is a distance between that moment of saying it and the moment of occurring. There is a gap, and this gap is basically making it the simple indefinite tense, simple past tense, or the past indefinite tense. Moving ahead. Now this is the next version of the past tense, which is known as the past progressive tense or the past continuous tense. What this basically refers to, it is used to describe actions ongoing in past. So now you can just remember the points that we talked about when it comes to the present continuous tense. It was directly related with that moment of speaking or writing. But in this case, this moment in which the event is ongoing, happening, not just happened, but it is happening, continuing, it itself lies in past. And it has nothing to do with that moment of speaking or writing. And in that case, when there is a distance, temporal distance, distance of time as well, so in that way you're going to refer to it using the past progressive tense. Action takes place in a specific time frame, and that time frame lies in past. No immediate or obvious connection to the present. Continuous event or action completed before the time of speaking or writing. So you got the point, which is clearly mentioned over here, that this continuing event or action, it lies somewhere in past, nothing to do with that moment, which is why you're going to say it in this way. The cat was walking. So past and ing, past and ing form, both there together to indicate that it lies in past and it's also progressing. The cat was walking along the tree branch, but it has nothing to do with the moment when I'm saying it or writing it. Therefore, it lies somewhere in past. The archivists were eagerly waiting for the delivery of the former Prime Minister's private papers. So, were indicating past and waiting, and it's ing basically indicating its continuous or the progressive nature. So, this is the focus to be there within your mind while using or while coming across this tense. You will know to which it basically belongs and when to use it. The purpose is to let you know when to use which tense once you'll have the awareness. Let's move ahead. Now things are once again just the way we had things perfect. Completion in case of your simple present tense, when it became perfect, you realize things were complete. In a similar way, now let's look into the past perfect tense. What this basically is: actions that took place and were completed within the past. Just the way you had the completion point in your present directly linked with that moment of speaking or writing, now you have that same completion, not ongoing nature. It's complete and it lies somewhere in past, nothing to do with that moment of speaking or writing, meaning there is a time gap, and that time gap will be reflected by using have or has once again, as you're going to see it. But this time there is going to be a difference. Have, has is basically used when we are talking about that present, and there has to be a difference when it comes to the use of past perfect tense, otherwise there is going to be a confusion. So how to resolve it? Basically there is another version to reflect our past perfect tense. But starting from the bullet, used to emphasize that one action, event or condition ended before another action, event began. So of course, once again, just the way you linked within present perfect tense, one event completing and the other starting. So you try to connect them, and the completion was there once again, but that completion was happening at the moment. In this case, this event which will be completed would lie in past, and then it will be linked or associated with the next event which is going to come in future. So one action ended before another action, event, condition began, which means that this event which completed would lie in past. Miriam arrived at 5 p.m. but Mr. Whitaker had closed the door. So now just look at the statement. Even if I ask you, you would have realized that, sir, yes, there is a difference, and that is of this expression. Have or has converted into had, and this D or had is basically reflecting that this is past perfect. And alongside you have the third form of the verb. Whitaker had closed the store, and we ate supper after we located the restaurant that Mahmoud had recommended. So if I start from the stages, this is stage 1. This is the event which completed, and back in time. Miriam arrived at 5, but Mr. Whitaker had already done the first stage which has completed, and that is that had already closed. So this arrival is late, although late, which is why it is in past, but this is way past, which is why it is in had closed form. Now looking towards the next sentence, we ate supper after we located the restaurant that Mahmoud had recommended. So this recommendation came first, then came the location, and then they ate the supper. So that is basically the way the stages are there, and this is the first stage, which is why it is in past and perfect form. The elephant had eaten all the hay, so we fed it oats for a week. So this was stage 1 and this was stage 2, and the heat wave had lasted 3 weeks. So once again you have the examples. Now looking towards the next level of that same past tense, the next variation is it's perfect and it's progressive. So it becomes even more interesting how that it is used to indicate that a continuing action in the past began before another past action began or interrupted the first action. So this becomes even more interesting. because now you are looking towards an action, although it is there within past, but it has this continuing nature on one hand, and then of course you have to look towards the next component, and that is that it began before another past action began or interrupted the first one. So it is going to have this ongoing nature, but the point of focus should be that it should lie first, and then the next point or the next stage is going to come, and that is of another action or event or condition. So this continuing action in the past, it lies in past and it is in continuing action, which is why it is past and it is progressive. And as it began before another action, that means that it's also perfect. Now if you look at the examples, it will become more easier for you to understand. The toddlers had been running around the schoolyard for 10 minutes before the teachers shooed them back inside. So now you see this past action, of course, is there, but it happened afterwards. This shooing of the teachers basically happened afterwards, but the first thing which was happening at stage 1 is that the toddlers had been running. So something which is ongoing, something which is happening first, so you basically refer to it at the first place, and for that you basically use the perfect progressive tense or the perfect continuous tense, and then of course you can refer to the next event which came afterwards. We had been talking about repainting the front room for 3 years, and last night we finally bought the paint, which means that this planning finally did the job. It was stage 1. You had been talking about repainting, and finally you did the next step. So this talking was in continuous form, this talking was in past, and this talking was perfect. It came earlier, and then came the next decision of buying the paint, this action of buying, which is why it lies afterwards. So you have the usage of the perfect progressive tense, past perfect progressive. A construction crew had been digging one pit after another in the middle of my street for 3 days before they found the water main. So once again, this is interrupting the first event, the first action, and that action is that this construction crew had been digging one pit after another in the middle. So this digging was in past, it was in continuous form, and then it came first, and then it was interrupted by the next action, that is that they finally found the water main, and it ended the first stage. So these are the conditions which should be there. Once again, if I provide you in this example, the chef's assistant had been chopping vegetables for several minutes before he realized that he had minced his apron strings. So this is stage 1, this is stage 2, this is stage 3. Meanings, the chef had been chopping, and then he chopped unconsciously his apron strings, and at the end finally he realized, but this realization finally ended this chopping which was just ongoing. It was in past and something which was uninterrupted until this realization. So the next stage interrupted or put it an end to the something which was happening earlier. So these are some of the conditions that I've tried to highlight again and again in each and every example, because at times we get mixed up with these minor things, but these are the differences, minor differences which are going to make major differences. Now we're going to look into the next stage, which becomes your tomorrow, the future tense, future simple indefinite tense, used to refer to actions, events or conditions which would occur after the act of speaking or writing. So now once again you have this point. If I just make a point over here, and now this action is going to occur somewhere over here. The past was referring to this point, something, action or event or condition which happened back in past, and now you have this point of speaking or writing over here which becomes the present. This is past, PST, then PR, present, and this is basically the point which indicates that this is the point in which the event or the action or condition is going to happen, but this is the point of speaking or writing, and there is a difference between it. So use to refer to actions, events or conditions which would occur after the act of speaking or writing. So once you have said it, once you have communicated to it already, then this thing is going to occur, then this thing is going to happen. Now if we look at the examples, they will meet us at the newest cafe in the market. So this meeting is going to occur at the newest cafe in the market, but it will happen in somewhere in future. So you have this expression of will to indicate the future tense alongside the verb, the main verb. Babar will call you tomorrow with details about the agenda. So the call is going to come tomorrow after this communication has happened. At the feast we will eat heartily. So once again this feast will occur and then they're going to eat, of course, but the communication has already happened and this is our plan, this is how we're going to do it. So there is a difference between this point of speaking and the point of happening. This is future. Now you know the difference. And over here you have the past. This is your present. Pretty good diagram that I've developed while delivering the lecture. Now we are going to look to the next variation, because that one was the simple indefinite future indefinite tense or the future simple future tense. Now we have this progressive nature once again, referring to the ongoing nature. This reflects the fact that whatsoever the action or the event or the condition it will be, on one hand it will be in future, the second it is going to have that same ongoing nature, that continuous nature, but this phase is going to lie within future because this is your present. So this will stay within the future. To describe actions which are going to be ongoing in the future. To refer to continuing action that will occur in the future. So Zishan will be working on the computer system for the next 2 weeks. So these next 2 weeks which are coming, which are of course starting ahead, in that phase Zishan will be working on that computer system. So this is the phase in which this Zishan will be working. The selection committee will be meeting every Wednesday morning. So Wednesday is the day which has been decided and it has been placed. It will always come in future, especially from that point of the statement in which you have said it. Wednesday will come afterwards, so you're going to be meeting within the future. So that's how you're referring to it. Future perfect tense becomes interesting. Now have a look at it. To refer to an action that will be completed sometime in the future before another action takes place. Once again the same conditions, look into it. This is the point of your speaking or saying. Over here you have the future. Now within this future, one event that you are referring to will happen and it will be completed. It will be completed and then you will move onwards towards the next one, which is going to come or which is going to interrupt the first one. But all this completion and happening will be happening within the future. It will have nothing to do with this point of saying it when you are saying the line. For example, the surgeon will have operated on 6 patients before she attends the luncheon meeting. So you are saying the statement, but you're also saying that will have operated on 6 patients. That surgeon will have operated before she attends the luncheon meeting. So this meeting will come afterwards. This operation will be happening first, as you are indicating within the line, and then of course the meeting. So that's how you're going to indicate that perfect once again with the use of have, but this have, as you are saying it, it lies in future. So you require the use of will, shall as well. So will indicating future, have indicating the perfect, and then the tense of course of a verb. So you're using this operated in third form on 6 patients before she attends the meeting. By the time you get back from the corner store, we will have finished writing the thank you letters. So once again, by the time you get back, and you'll get back, something will happen already, and that is that we will have future perfect tense writing the thank you letters. So this is how the order of these tenses is, and once you have done this something which lies within the future, it will be interrupted by this next action of you getting back. So something which happens after something which has happened within the future. So this is the order in which you move your point of saying. Then comes the first action, which will be indicated by future perfect, and then it will be interrupted by the next action, which is by the time you get back or before you go to this meeting. So many circles, but that is how you can understand it easily, the way tenses are used and organized. Future perfect progressive continuous tense. So this one becoming interesting as well. Now you have this progressive nature as well, you have the perfect nature as well. So at times it can be a bit confusing, as a result of which the first line says it all, used rarely, but its comprehension should be there, and which is why I want you to understand it properly, that it is used to indicate that a continuing action that will be completed at some specified time within the future. So there is some event, again you have this point of saying it, and this is the ongoing process, but this will be completed before something else begins. So you have to indicate the ongoing nature as well, and then alongside you have to show that it is complete as well. So this rise and fall along with the tick means that somewhere in the future it will be completed. So to reflect both of these things alongside the use of future, perfect and progressive, this is the structure. I will have been studying Greek for 3 years by the end of this term. Will indicating the future, have been indicating this perfect progressive nature, and studying INGs basically this progressive nature or the continuous nature, but this future perfect is basically reflected by will have been, and this been is basically used alongside to support the ing form of the verb, and then you say simply I have been doing this, I have been working on this, I will have been doing this in case of a future tense. So I will have been studying Greek for 3 years by the end of this term. By the time the meeting is over, the committee will have been arguing about which candidate to interview for 3 hours. So now you know the differences. Bit tricky, bit confusing. It took a time to organize all these tenses and especially the diagrams. Didn't think of making these diagrams, honestly. I just came up with these, which is why they're not that good even, but to just give you some points of references to make things more clear, you can just draw these diagrams for yourself, for your own convenience, and that is going to help you out to understand how and where to use which form of tense. Now you know the use of the different tense, but this tense will also be determined alongside the subjects which are coming, some other subjects which are used. Subject vary from sentence to sentence, situation to situation. Therefore, linguists, or you can call as the grammarians, have made these rules and guidelines which are known as the subject-verb agreement, which should be understood as well. There are some few rules which should be there within your mind, and of course these will be developed. This will become part of your writing, your speaking with practice, but I am sure that you'll get a good command over it once you know how these are used. So if I just give you some of the basics, it all begins from the basic rule. The basic rule is that you have singular subjects, you have plural subjects, and alongside you have the singular verb as well as the plural verb. For example, they, starting from the singular. He, she, it, of course, are the singular subjects, so they're going to take a singular verb. He goes, she talks, she writes, and he walks, he sleeps. In a similar way, they walk and we walk. Again, based on this use of the subject, the verb is also changing. So now you have this basic knowledge of what singular verb is, what a plural verb is, and how it's directly linked with the usage of the singular or the plural subject. But this is the basic rule. Rules are actually coming ahead, starting from the rule number 1. Two singular subjects connected by or nor. This or is basically part of the sentence, which is why it's not bold. You can have a slash as well, as you have learned within the punctuation marks. So two subjects, if there are, and if they are singular subjects, he, she, or names, connected by or nor, require a singular verb, as my aunt or my uncle is arriving by train today. So based on this use and the central or, you have decided to use a singular verb, which is. So rule number 1 made all clear. Let's go to rule number 2. Two singular subjects connected by either an or neither and nor require a singular subject, as in rule number 1, as you had it. Example is going to clarify. Neither John nor Carmen is available. So you have these two subjects, singular subjects, within and in between you have neither and nor. So based on it, you have decided to use the singular verb. Either Kiana or Casey is helping today with stage decoration. Two singular subjects connected with either and or. Two rules clear. Rule number 3. When I, first person singular, is one of the two subjects connected by either or neither nor, put it second. What second? This I will be placed second and follow it with a singular verb, am. As in, neither she, one, nor I am going to the festival. I is coming afterwards, and alongside you're using this am. Rule made clear. Rule number 4. When a singular subject is connected by or nor to a plural subject, earlier there were like singular subjects, but now a singular subject connected using or nor with a plural subject, put the plural subject last and use a plural verb. So in case of singular and plural, and within the center there is an or, you're going to place this plural afterwards and alongside a plural verb, as in the serving bowl, singular, or the plates go on that shelf. Based on this second subject, you have placed go, a plural verb. So rule made clear alongside an example. Rule number 5. When a singular and plural subject are connected by either or neither nor, put the plural subject last and use a plural verb, as the case in previous one. Earlier it was or, but now the condition has extended, either or neither nor. Once again, the plural will be placed afterwards alongside are, the plural verb. Neither Jenny nor the others are available. Rule number 6. Use a plural verb with two or more subjects when they are connected by and. So when there are two or more subjects, but the use is different. Earlier it was or, but over here it's and. So when there is an and, you're going to use a plural verb in case of two or more subjects, as in a car and a bike are my means of transportation. So colors are also there for your convenience, but I'm adding up, numbering it for you, that these are the subjects This is the condition, and that's how the verb is being placed, whether singular or plural. Let's move ahead to look into rule number 7. Sometimes the subject is separated from the verb by words such as along with, as well as, besides, and even not. Well, in that case, you do not have to worry. Just ignore and focus on the subject which precedes these expressions. So what is basically the subject which is behind, which is coming first of all these expressions, and decide according to that subject which verb has to be used. For example, the politician along with the newsman is expected shortly. Is directly coming based on this politician subject. Excitement as well as nervousness is, again according to the rule, excitement is determining which verb has to be used, is the cause of earth shaking. So this is how rule number 7 can be understood. Rule number 8. Pronouns. You know what pronouns are. They're used in case of a noun, when you have used nouns already. The alternative as such pronouns as each, everyone, everyone, everybody, anyone, anybody, someone, somebody are singular and require a singular verb. So all these pronouns which have been mentioned, they are singular and require a singular verb. For example, every one of the cakes is gone. Each of the girls sings well. So according to this expression, it is determining to use this singular verb. Every one of the cakes is gone. Over here, this note is there for your convenience as well, that there's a difference between, minor difference between everyone and everyone. Why? Everyone, when joined together and used, is one word where it refers to, or it means everyone, collective. Whereas everyone, when separated, is two words, and the meaning is that each one of the group. So over here, each one of the cake, each and every one of the cake is gone. So you are referring to every, as mentioned over here. With these, you are going to use the singular verb, because they all belong to that category of singular pronouns, and they'll take singular subject, singular verb. Rule number 9. In case of words indicating portions like percent, fraction, part, majority, sum, all, none, remainder, and so forth. So these are the examples. Use the verb in accordance with the noun being used in the off phrase. So what is basically an off phrase? Whenever you say the Statue of Liberty, within that basically, or you can say anything which is coming after off, the use of the word off, and right after that off, what are the words? Together they are making that off phrase. And especially in such a scenario when you have this quantitative data or words indicating the portions, these are the components which are basically coming after this off phrase. This is basically, this is the off phrase, this is the off phrase, this is the off phrase. Now I hope that you're clear. So in that case, now you have to focus on what's basically blue, because this is the noun which is coming out within the off phrase. 50% of the pie has disappeared. So the pie has determined whether to use a singular or a plural. Pie singular, so has. 50% of the pies have disappeared. Pies have made it singular. 1/3 of the city is unemployed. 1/3 of the people are people, plural. None of the garbage was picked up, and none of the sentences were punctuated correctly. So this is determining what's basically lying within the off phrase, that noun. Rule number 10. The expression the number is followed by a singular verb, whereas a number is followed by a plural verb. As the number of people we need to hire is 13, because it's the number. A number of people have written in about this subject. So there are many people, and this many people is making it have, meaning plural. And over here you're asking for that specific number, that's why making it singular. Rule number 11, rules are about to be over. Don't get worried about it. Either and neither, when they are subjects, they take a singular word, as in neither of them is available to speak right now. Neither of us is capable of doing the job, because now these are the subjects. Rule number 12, in sentences beginning with here or there, the subject follows the verb. So now you have the situation in which these are some of the expressions such as here and there. So now you have these over here in the beginning, and when sentences are starting with these adverbs of places, the subject follows the verb, as you can see over here. This is the verb and this is basically the subject. So this is the rule which is basically being applied over here, that on one hand the adverbs of places are being placed at the beginning in sentence beginning with, of course, here and there. So these are placed at the beginning over here. Right after these expressions you have the verb, and afterwards you are going to have the subject. So the subject is no longer going to be there before the verb, rather it is going to come afterwards. So that is the point which should be there within your mind. There is a high hurdle to jump. So these are the subjects and these are the verbs. Rule number 13. Singular verb with sums of money or periods of time. Well, in that case, of course, you are going to use the singular verb. And as now we have the sum of money over here, $10 is a high price, 5 years is the maximum sentence for that offense. It's like a punishment, 5 years. So now you have a specific period of time, it's being specified, therefore you are using this singular verb based on rule number 13. Rule number 14 says that with pronouns such as who, that or which, use the verb according to the noun directly in front of these pronouns. So now you have, these are the nouns basically which are in front of these expressions, as you can see, and over here we have a scientist which is making it according to the rule. Being singular is going to apply a singular verb. This one being plural is going to use a plural verb. So Salma is the scientist who writes the report. He is one of the men who do the work. One of the men, and those men are the one being referred to. Therefore, according to the expression, according to rule number 14, this expression is going to determine that with plural there will be a plural verb, with a singular is going to be a singular verb. And the last rule, rule number 15, such as the collective nouns such as team and staff may either be singular or plural depending on their use within a sentence. As you can see, the staff is in a meeting overall. They are being in a collective form. They are in a meeting and they are together. So therefore, the staff is like a singular and therefore taking a singular verb. And moving ahead, the staff are in disagreement about the findings. So over here, the situation has changed because now there is a disagreement. Some have agreed, some have disagreed. So therefore, now you have to reflect the fact that they are staff members and these members have their separate perspectives. So they can't be a united whole, a single body. Rather, they are separate groups and they should be reflected with this collective verb or the plural verb, and that is of are.
In this summary, we'll be going through lecture 28, which again covers basic grammar. In line with the lecture sequence, we'll start off with verb tenses. There are two facets of this. In a verb tense, verb indicates action and tense indicates the placement of the verb in time. Depending on the era of time, these are then divided into three further types: the present tense, the past tense, and the future tense. Let's get into the rules of present tenses. Like having a cup of tea, present tenses are used to describe actions, events, or conditions occurring in the present. They are also used to express general truths, as in, there are 60 seconds in a minute. or to indicate a habitual action or condition, as in, I live in Islamabad. Or used when writing about works of art, as in, King Lear is written by Shakespeare. And also used to refer to a future event when used in conjunction with an adverb, as in, the lunar eclipse begins in exactly 43 minutes. There is another type of present tense called the continuous tense, which emphasizes the continuing nature of an act, event, or condition. It is also occasionally used to refer to a future event when using a conjunction with an adverb or adverbial phrase, as in, the doors are opening in 10 minutes. Another type of present tense is called the present perfect tense, which is used to describe an action that began in the past and has just completed at the moment of utterance. For example, they have not delivered the documents we need. The final type of present tense is called the perfect continuous tense, and it is used to describe the action, event, or condition that began in the past and continues into the present. An example is the sentence, "They have been publishing this comic book for 10 years. Let's delve in the past. We'll start off with the simple past or the indefinite past tense. This is used to describe an action, event, or condition that occurred in the past. For example, I what an apple. I ate an apple. The progressive past or the continuous past tense is used to describe actions ongoing in the past. The cat was walking along the tree branch. There's another type of past tense called the past perfect tense, and it is used to describe actions that took place and were completed in the past. For example, we ate supper after we located the restaurant that Mahmoud had recommended. Finally, the last type of past tense is called the past perfect continuous tense and is used to indicate that a continuing action in the past began before another past action began or interrupted the first action. The toddlers had been running around the schoolyard for 10 minutes before the teachers shooed them back inside. For the future tense, we'll start off with the future indefinite tense. This type is used to refer to the actions, events, or conditions which would occur after the act of speaking or writing. For example, they will meet us at the newest cafe in the market. As with the other two tenses, the future tense also has a progressive or continuous tense. This is used to describe either actions ongoing in the future or to refer to continuing actions that will occur in the future. For example, Zishan will be working on the computer system for the next 2 weeks. The third type of future tense, as you guessed, is the future perfect tense. This is used to refer to an action that will be completed sometime in the future before another action takes place. The surgeon will have operated on 6 patients before she attends a lunch meeting. The last tense type, the future perfect progressive or the future perfect continuous tense, is used to indicate a continuing action that will be completed at some specified time in the future. For example, I will have been studying Greek for 3 years by the end of this term. After these general guidelines, we will now move on to look at the rules and guidelines regarding subject-verb agreement. There are 2 basic rules. The singular subject takes a singular verb, and the plural subject takes a plural verb. Let's consider rules one by one with an example. Rule 1. 2 singular subjects connected by or nor require a singular verb. My aunt or my uncle is arriving by train today. Rule 2. 2 singular subjects connected by either or neither nor require a singular verb as in Rule 1. Neither Juan nor Carmen is available. Rule 3. When I is one of the 2 subjects connected by either or neither nor, put it second and follow it with the singular verb am. For example, neither she nor I am going to the festival. Rule 4. When a singular subject is connected by or nor to a plural subject, put the plural subject last and use the plural verb. The serving bowl or the plates go on that shelf. Rule 5. When a singular and plural subjects are connected by either or neither nor, put the plural subject last and use the plural verb. For example, neither Jenny nor the others are available. Rule 6. Use a plural verb with two or more subjects when they are connected with and. For example, a car and a bike are my means of transportation. Rule 7. Sometimes the subject is separated from the verb by words such as along with, as well as, besides, or not. You will have to ignore these expressions and focus on the subject which precedes these expressions. For example, the politician, along with the newsman, is expected shortly. Rule 8. Pronouns such as each, everyone, everybody, anyone, anybody, someone, somebody are singular and require singular verbs. For example, every one of the cakes is gone. Rule 9. In case words indicate portions like percent, fraction, part, majority, some, all, none, remainder, and so forth, it is more accurate to use the verb in accordance with the noun being used in the of phrase. To remember this easily, keep in mind that you need to focus on the object of preposition of. For example, 50% of the pie has disappeared. Rule 10. The expression a number is followed by a plural verb. For example, a number of people have written about the subject. Rule 11. The words either and neither, if treated as subjects, take a singular verb. For example, neither of them is available to speak right now. Rule 12. In sentences beginning with here or there, the subject follows the verb. For example, there are 4 hurdles to jump. Rule 13. A singular verb is used with sums of money or periods of time. For example, $10 is a high price to pay. Rule 14. With pronouns such as who, that, or which, use the verb according to the noun directly in front of these pronouns. For example, Salma is the scientist who writes these reports. And lastly, Rule 15. Collective nouns such as team and staff may be either singular or plural depending on the use in the sentence. For example, saying that the staff is in a meeting would be correct if the staff is related to as a singular entry. However, saying that the staff are in disagreement about the findings indicates the use as a staff members, collectively. That's it. Hope you find this useful.
This brings us to the end of our today's lecture. I would say that some of the rules, they might be a bit tricky, they might be a bit tiring for your brain to digest and accept, but believe me, they're going to help you a lot whenever you have to do the writing, because grammar matters a lot whenever you have to do your writing, and it will be very helpful to have a good impression, especially with the reference to the course, that the subject that you are studying, that you are learning, and of course you will be producing, you will be writing, and these rules will be very much helpful for you as they are for me, especially the way I have prepared them. So till that, it's goodbye from my side, and I would say that even this explanation has made me tired too, and I'll be taking a break as well. Same goes for you. There's one thing that I would like to mention here, that this word order will be a bit tricky, which is why I'm going to make it a special part for your next lecture, and then we'll be talking about some other components that we'll be covering within the next lecture. So this word order will be covered in our next lecture. For now, just try to accept and digest what we have studied in our today's lecture, all about tenses and the subject verb agreement. But word order is coming ahead, because after all, you have to write sentences in an appropriate word order. But till that time, take good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next lecture. Assalamu alaikum and Allah Hafiz.